After this video, you'll know everything about buying and selling ETFs at DEGIRO. How does it work? An explanation with the best simple, basic principles for getting started with ETFs, buying and selling. My name is Yorick Vermeulen. Welcome to Happy Investors. I've been investing for over 10 years, most of which has been through DEGIRO. The platform has developed over the years, but buying ETFs is still quite cheap and simple at DEGIRO. This is not a promotion. This is simply an explanatory video for beginners or semi-beginners who want to know how to buy and sell ETFs. As an explanation of the different types of market and limit orders that exist. But before we start, a small request from my side. Have our videos ever helped you? Do you find this video valuable? You can support us by subscribing and liking. Not many people do that, but if you do, it would be greatly appreciated. Well, let's take a look. How we can sell ETFs. And of course, buying. Do you have questions about it? Let us know in the comments. Shall we get started?
My promise to you is that after this video, you'll know exactly how to buy and sell ETFs at DEGIRO, and also an explanation of how the platform works. Let's first take a look at how the platform works, a global overview. Next, we'll take a look at some costs. How can you find ETFs, and how can you buy and sell these ETFs? That's what we're going to talk about. If you have any questions, that's fine, because the videos are long enough. Can they forget things? Then let us know in the comments of the video. And maybe you have some additional input for the rest of us. That's always good to know. When you log into DEGIRO, you'll actually find an overview that looks like this. Above, you'll find your balance, and here you can see your portfolio. The portfolio, that amount means how much money you have invested. Here it says euro, that means the available funds. So your portfolio plus the amount of available funds is your total balance. And available to trade is actually the available funds minus buy order that you might have open. And I'll show you that in just a moment. A buy order open for about 2,000 euros. Well, then you have available funds minus the buy order. For 2,000 euros, that's your available to trade. Moreover, mine is in English because I also make videos for an English-speaking audience. But you can, of course, just set it to Dutch or another language. On the right, you see the winners and losers of the AEX. Here you find the indices. So the AEX is the Dutch stock exchange. The European 50 is the 50 largest companies in Europe. Of course, you have the S&P 500, the USA, Tech 100, which is the NASDAQ 100. That's how you find those indices. Personally, I don't really do anything with these lists here, not even with these top 10 lists. My personal opinion and experiences, after 10 years of investing, ignore these lists because I actually don't get much out of them. Instead, you'd be better off doing your own research and listening to people who know what they're talking about. The DEGIRO newsletter is just designed to get you to buy and sell. Avoid that you actually want to make as few transactions as possible. You also find news and a schedule, all that kind of stuff. Yes, good. It can happen, but I don't think that's the cause. In favorites, you can add favorites as a kind of watch list. A watch list is a waiting list for ETFs or stocks that you might want to buy in the future, but where you're waiting for an attractive valuation or a better instant moment. In that case, you can add that to your favorites. Then you can see your portfolio. When you purchase something, you see an overview of your portfolio. I have a selection of about 20 stocks, of which 2 are real estate funds. So actually 18 companies, relatively focused. In the past, I had many more positions. Now a bit less, and maybe later a bit more. By the way, the entire update of my stock portfolio, I regularly share that on our channel. So don't forget to subscribe. Then I stay updated on the most recent transactions. And the same goes for the ETFs that I buy and sell myself. Right now, I only have one ETF. Suppose you're only buying ETFs, then you don't have any stocks. But then you only see the overview of trackers. Those are ETFs, exchange-traded funds. And at the moment, you can see that I have one position in an ETF with the ticker, REP, and soon I will U. I'll explain at the end of the video what these codes mean. This is the least interesting part, and it's saved for last. But you can see my position here and a bit of value. That's actually the field where you've invested. You see the currency, which will be important for explaining the costs. You see the average purchase price. Here, there will be another abbreviation in Dutch or English, profit and loss. So the price, profit and loss, the result on a daily basis. So in this case, this ETF is currently up 2.9%. Well, that's positive. So there is an increase of 330 euros due to that 3% rise. But my realized profit is actually a loss because I'm down 7% with all this ETF. So in total, that's a loss of 1,400 euros in this case. Then you can see in the overview that we have gains in the long term here. So in the past, I've had a number of ETFs, especially in America, specifically. At the bottom of this video, there are a few things going on, so you can't charge that now. That's a bit more advanced, but share that in the portfolio updates that we share every month. So for that, you can subscribe to our channel. If you've purchased an ETF, you'll see it here, and then you can actually buy more or sell on the signal. First, explanation of some other things. You see a number of messages in your inbox. If you have open orders, you'll find them here. So you can see open orders or the history of orders you've made in the past. At the moment, I have two open. One is a limit order for buying, and I actually just want to buy this stock at a limit of $15. And when the stock market is open, because right now it's closed in America, when the stock market opens and the stock, or in this case an ETF, hits the price of 15, then it will automatically buy for me. So that's my limit. And soon I will explain the limit orders to you. And I have a stock that I actually want to sell, but as a stop loss. So this stock has recently gone up a lot. As you can see, here is a clothing. The total value is now 20,000 euro. It has skyrocketed with about a 700 or 600% return in just 1 year. And the valuation has gone up a bit. So yeah, I actually want to do a cash lay when it drops too much, at least to take out a part, to take my profit out. And the stock price is therefore 305. This order has been set for, I think, a month now. And as long as it doesn't hit that 305, no order will be sold. And you can apply exactly the same with ETFs. So that's why it's relevant. And you can see that with orders account statement. Here you actually see an overview of the cost you've incurred when you've purchased something. And you will also find an overview of dividends. Next up, booking holdings. Has it paid out? A little bit of dividend. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong pair. Booking Holdings has paid out a dividend here. So you can see what the dividend is, and you can see what the dividend tax is. That dividend tax can come up in your annual tax return, what your total dividend is, and also your dividend tax. And depending on your position, you can claim some of that back or everything. You can also go to transactions, and then you actually find the percentage of the buy and sell action that you've done. You can still see a bit of where the positions have decreased in value. In this case, for example, Soko, the stock has dropped by 60%, but it has already decreased by a total of 40%. That's a really bad investment on my part. Of course, that's always looking back. But right now, it's down by 40%. And you can set up a notification level at DEGIRO that says, hey, this stock has dropped by 10%. Doesn't have to, but it can. Finally, you can go to documents, the inbox, and here you find a lot of different documents that you can download. What's relevant, of course, for your tax return? Well, after that, you definitely want to start investing in ETFs. Let's assume you don't have any inspiration for ETFs yet. What you can do then is go to products and then go to trackers. And here you actually find the overview of all the ETFs that are available at DEGIRO and that you can buy or sell. There are really a lot of them. It's really a very long list. Up to 74. So that's, what is it, more than 7,000 ETFs, but they are all different variants. I'll explain what all these symbols mean just a moment. And sometimes there's also a term like distribution or accumulation. But first, commission time. So DEGIRO is also known for their DEGIRO core selection. Basically, what you need to do is go to trackers and you'll find the overview and commission type. You click on ETF core selection, and within the ETF core selection, you can buy ETFs for actually €0. Transaction costs. Just quickly about those costs to show you that if you buy a stock at DEGIRO, it costs you €1 commission for American stocks with also a €1 handling fee. So that's actually just €2. A share from, for example, the Amsterdam Stock Exchange costs you €3, but for example, a share from the German Stock Exchange with a TDG exchange cost you €5. So that's quite a significant cost. And you have to think the percentage is if you buy an ETF for €100 and you have to pay €5 on that, then that's 5%, and that's a lot. So in this case, you actually want to buy at least, for example, for €500. Then you have €5 in costs, and then you have 1% total costs. So this is also the reason why you shouldn't trade too much. Definitely for ETF investing, that's essentially just long-term instruments. You do have a distinction between broadly diversified ETFs versus specific theme ETFs. Theme ETFs are definitely for more experienced investors. But think of, for example, an ETF that only invests in semiconductors. That's a high risk product, and you might want to trade a bit more actively when it's clearly green. And you actually want to buy more when it's clearly undervalued. But for global ETFs, you actually want to trade as little as possible. You can find the core selection here. You pay €0 in commission, but there is a €1 handling fee. But there are more costs involved, namely the currency handling. Let's say you buy a product, a stock, or an ETF in dollars. You're from Europe, then you pay 0.50% currency cost for converting euros to dollars. So a very simple tip, someone from Europe, is just to buy ETFs within the DEGIRO core selection. Then you have €1 in transaction costs. Buy that in euro currency. Well, I can't make it any simpler than that. You can find different exchanges here. That TDG means the German Stock Exchange. And you see here, and this is a good example, you can also find the exact same ETF on another exchange, and definitely Paris. And you see same amounts here. So this is just the exact same ETF, but on a different exchange. So here you can always check what the costs are, and then you can also take a look at the episodes. How do you do that? You just click on buy. I'm just going to adjust my head a bit. You click on buy. You want to buy this ETF now, just to set aside the type of orders. And what you do is you just type, let's say the price is 25 and you want to buy 20, because then you won't get it anyway. And you want buy a quantity of 1, then place the order. And you immediately see the estimated DEGIRO fees here. We just selected from the core ETF selection. So all these ETFs here are part of the core selection. So in this case, we're actually only paying €1 in handling fees. We've already seen that here too. €1 in handling fees. That's it. There are also no transaction costs. As you can see, we're buying it in euros. There will be €1 sign. So costs are €1 in this case. For buying those ETFs, that's already far along policy for what they call it. So if you buy the same ETF twice, there has to be a certain high amount. And also in the same direction. So buy or sell, sell. You want those transaction costs, but don't be completely blind to it, because it's just in euros, and you should also pay attention to the costs, but not too much. You shouldn't let everything depend on that. Well, a tip for this is on our channel, on our YouTube channel, we've made a very detailed video, a recent video about the best ETFs within the core selection. And for more inspiration, check out those ETFs. Then we explain very well which ETFs within this core selection are interesting for long-term investors. Do you want more inspiration? Take a look at our website. We offer a product, ETF ads with weekly buy and sell signals from 100 plus ETFs. We also share our expertise as a 10-year investor on which ones could be interesting and which ones might not. And we provide a monthly update of top ETFs to help you find the best ETFs. And you can try that €1 for the next 14 days. The price is €99 per year. That's not so much at all. We also have stock alerts, and we have some other options. What does such a head work option look like? It actually looks a bit like this. And then we make a weekly printout of that. And we do that for a lot of ETFs. And then it actually provides a weekly update for everything. So just during the next monthly period. But again, you don't want to trade too much with ETFs. So a product has been created to find 1 or 2 good ideas per year. That sounds like very little. But believe me, if you're into investing, you only need 1 or 2 good ideas, especially when it comes to ETFs. So now I can start looking at buying and selling ETFs, or in other words, the buy and sell orders. Create with different views on market and limit orders, stop loss, that kind of stuff. Okay, you have an ETF you want to invest in. Let's keep in mind that you haven't bought anything yet. Then your portfolio overview is completely empty. In this case, I still have 1 ETF myself, but in my position. But what I find a really interesting ETF, for example, is the QQQ. And I'm actually waiting for That Invesco, QQQ, is going down. Another one that's more suitable for beginners is the global ETF for beginners, and that is the you have multiple global ETFs. A global ETF is simply an ETF with a lot of holdings. So there are more than 1,500 companies in this tracker, and that is global. About 70% America and 30% Europe and Asia. Well, IBDA is a well-known example for investors. And you see here, so it says ACC. That means accumulating. It can also say DIS, that means distribution. Accumulating means that this ETF does not pay out the dividend, but reinvest. And distribution means that it pays out the dividend. And I am a big proponent of accumulating. Why? Simply because it creates the compound interest effect faster for the very long term. And you can see that too, a big upward trend, that the dividend is simply automatically reinvested in the fund. So don't have any dividend tax, even if it's just temporary, even though you can request it back. It ensures that at least that money goes back into the fund. Then you don't have to do anything for it yourself. So you don't have to worry about it either. But maybe you want to live off dividends yourself. Then you naturally have interesting dividend stocks and dividend ETFs at your disposal. Okay, you want to buy the IBDA? Of course, you have established a financial plan. Your monthly amount, or maybe even bi-monthly, because you might have a smaller amount each month. Let's say 100 euros. Buying an ETF for just 100 euros means you'll have higher transaction costs. So you can also choose to just buy every 2 months. The choice is entirely yours, what you do. But my tip is make sure there are fixed structures in place, because what you don't want to do is procrastinate. At the moment, the stock market is relatively highly valued. It goes with peaks and valleys. As a beginner, you haven't really gained much experience to be very knowledgeable about it. So you'll need to gain a lot more knowledge. But ETFs are essentially a long-term product. So what you actually want to do is mainly when it starts to drop, do you want to buy a lot more? If you just keep adding more every time it drops and you keep doing that consistently, then the chance is likely that in 20 or 30 years, you'll have a positive return. And how high that return is, it really depends on how much money you invest and how the stock market performs. Now, to buy in this fund, there's still a risk category behind this. That is always behind the share. And in this case, it's an ETF. Now with stocks, you have A, B, C, D, E, and maybe even something lower. But for example, D means a relatively high risk share. So that makes the financial situation a bit unclear. For example, I think Alphabet will have a risk class A because they have a lot of cash. And the chance that such a company goes bankrupt in the short term is the ETF falls into a different category, in this case, category H means definitely a lower risk compared to stocks, simply because there are 1,500 stocks in the fund. That's quite a big difference. You can actually find that risk category on the website. You want to buy UDA. Buying for the first time is super fun, of course. It might feel exciting. For me, it was 10 years ago, so I don't remember what the first emotion might have been. And it might be exciting too, but really it's just simply a game. That's how you should see it. Every day the numbers come out. Yeah, it is what it is. And nice thing about investing in ETFs is that you can just invest passively every time, regularly invest an amount and just continue with your life and have fun. We're going to buy this ETF. You see that the current price is around 4. If you say, I just want to buy now, so you log in every time, every month or every 2 months or every week, then you set it up, market order. And a market order simply means that you buy at the current price that is available right now. In this case, you have a budget of 210 euros, so you buy 2 ETF and you place a limit order and you find an overview of, okay, you're going to buy 2 ETFs now. This is a market order and you buy this on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. The price is in euros. We've already seen that here and you can see that here again. So there are no transaction fees and ETF that also falls within the DEGIRO selection. So we're paying €1 in transaction fees. There's a small one, but for every exchange where you buy products, you pay 2.50 euros per year for that. Let's say I have, for example, 4 exchanges in total. So I have shares from 4 different exchanges. Then I'm spending 10 euros a year. really interesting. That's not the amount you should lose sleep over. Just eat in, preferably in euros, because that also saves you from the currency risk of the dollar suddenly dropping significantly against the euro, as an example, or the other way around. So you're going to buy and you click confirm. I'm going to do that now, otherwise I'll buy this ETF. But now you've suddenly bought something and that will actually be done immediately. They are, because this is a fund with a lot of liquidity, that means there's a lot of capital involved, that there are a lot of buyers and sellers on a daily basis. And yes, if you only want to buy two ETFs, these two certificates from this ETF, then that's of course peanuts considering the large transaction volumes. So that will be updated very quickly. If you want to buy certificates from this ETF, then that's really peanuts considering the large transaction volumes. So that will be updated very quickly. Let's say you've just bought and say, yeah, that's totally fine. I have a bit of this price. And according to that, now let's say it starts to drop and I want to buy here at the price of 100. I want to automatically buy again. Why? Why? Because then you think my process is already fine. Maybe an even better example. You don't want to buy again at minus 10%. So for convenience, you want to set it at 95 euros. What you do then is you have a buy order. You set it to limit. You enter 95. So that means your limit is that you want to pay a maximum of 45 euros to buy this. And let's say it's again two that you want to buy. You press good till cancel. In the other language, there's something different here as an abbreviation, but the day order means that it actually only runs until the end of today. If the stock market closes today, then this order expires. Then you set it up as a sort of long-term order. Then it stays active for a certain period, a number of months. And even after a few months, if that price of 5 liters has never been reached, so never goes back to this level, but just keep rising. If that's the case, then it will never be activated. And after a certain number of months, it disappears automatically. But then you also get a notification. Okay, going to place a limit order now. All you have to do now is confirm. And you place the limit order. Then you see here in your orders, or what we saw earlier, the orders here. You can see the open order. And then there's actually just a sort of limit order in. And here is the ETF with the ticker UDA. And you see the limit. In this case, it would be 95 euros with a quantity or number of 2. And let's go. Well, you bought that UDA. Super cool. Did you buy it now? Super fun. It's set now. It has risen to 130. And for whatever reason you want to sell, personally, I would try to sell as little as possible because it's really about long-term investing in a globally diversified ETF like the EBDA or another ticker. Well-known tickers are the WWRL or the VWCE. Once again, on our subscription or on our YouTube channel, we frequently share tips and inspiration about potentially the best stocks, but also ETFs, and we also share our own portfolio monthly updates. I would definitely appreciate it if you subscribed. Then you'll stay updated on that development. Well, for whatever reason, you want to sell and you click on sell here. Actually, you know the same story. If you want to sell right away, for whatever reason, as long as it's not for a panic reason, then click on market and type the quantity in number 2. And here you can start selling again. Place order. I'm getting a notification here because I don't have any EBITDA at all. So maybe it's not working. But when you place the order, you can see the costs are again. Now, let's say you bought at 104 and you say, for whatever reason, after a 20% return, I'm happy with that and I want to cash out and stop or whatever. Then you click on sell again. You set your limit in this case at 120 euros as an example. Not on day order because it's never going to reach that in one day. And you set it for the long term, good till cancel in this case, and you type in the number of quantities. For example, 4 because you bought 4 of them. And you press place order, then another limit order will appear in the overview of here your orders. And they are only activated after a certain number of months or years. The price of 120 is reached. And actually, those are the 2 most common situations. There can be another example. And that's actually a way to hedge against a kind of risk because you are trading more short term. And by short term, I don't mean 2 months, but for example, you're just before your retirement. And for whatever reason, you lose. Limit potential loss to minus 20%. I can also give a whole explanation about this, but aside from that, what you can do is set a stop loss order. And by giving an explanation, I mean, I'm not in favor of that with an ETF, but because I think you should actually buy more. With every major drop, I think you should just buy more. And then you also have to take your financial plan into account that you always have some cash on hand. Anyway, for your emergency provisions and your basic needs, that's priority. Number one, you need to have your finances in order, and then you should have some money left over in case you want to buy more. But for the asset as well, you bought at 104 and you don't trust it at all, and you think this ETF, I don't want it to drop below, for example, 90. Let's say the market crashes and the price drops quickly to 90. Then you can set a stop loss here, and if it dips below that, it will automatically sell. And in this case, what you want to do is, again, from that order, you set it for the long term, and now you choose stop loss, and your stop price, in this case, it's 90. So simply put, the price drops to 90. You say stop for me here, no further. And here I want it to automatically sell my ETFs. You've sold a total of 4 and you want to sell all 4 of them. Then, of course, you have some loss on your ETFs. At that moment, it will automatically sell at that 90. And yes, if it drops further, then you won't have any additional loss. Why on earth would you do that for ETFs? I wonder, I wouldn't do that for ETFs, but I do happen to have a stop loss set up at the moment. But that's for a stock. I've already explained that. So this stock is, hey, we see the promotion of our own company. Let's say it just happened. And bluffing has increased a lot in the past period. So I bought somewhere here in December, a bit like this. It was at its best almost at 58%. And it's now at 66% for me. 60%, and it's exactly at 66% here. I bought in again somewhere here. But what we see is that the stock is now a bit overvalued. You can see below, the price earnings ratio is at 95%. That's quite significant. You see a market value of 105 billion. This company currently has a revenue of 4 billion. It could very well be that, at least in the short term, the price will continue to drop. I said, yes, I want to have a stop loss at 305. I did that based on charts where I can see it better. You do that through, in this case, TradeView. Then I use candles and look at where the support level is. You can't see that very well here. That's just 305, for example. I want to sell that. At least I can take my profit there. So here I have a stop loss. I placed a sell order for 45 Apple shares at the stop price of 305. Fortunately for me, it keeps fluctuating just above that 305. It even touched 308 yesterday, but it has risen again. So I'm very curious if that's going to happen. But with ETFs, that's probably not necessary. Well, finally, a few more things to explain. Regarding the ETFs, what all those terms mean. Again, it might be that I forget things. So if I do forget something, just ask about it. Feel free to leave comments or add your own input. That's even better. You see a number of ETFs and you see different names. And then you think, yeah, what is it all? I'm just randomly picking this example. I don't know this product at all. But what you see is they all have the same name. But we see a few differences. First of all, we see a difference in symbol. Well, that symbol, they also call it a ticker. And actually, a ticker is most well known in the world of investing when you mention a product. So I actually want to talk about 21 shares Algorand. I often just call it the ticker because that's much quicker. That's often just 4 digits, sometimes a little more. And in this case, I call the ticker Algo. Behind this is an eSIM code, which is usually not relevant. And here is the exchange, the stock exchange. Now, suppose you still need to save something, 52 euros a year. Then you mainly want to buy from one and the same exchange. So this is Paris, the exchange Amsterdam, the XET. It's for Germany. And so you have different exchanges. You also have the TDG, which is also in Germany, but also the more well-known exchanges, like in America. What you see here is a difference in price. Here you see 3 euros, and here you see $3. It's exactly the same product. It's just on a different exchange. Now, suppose you have everything on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, but in this case, you see here that the currency is the dollar, then I would still choose this exchange in Paris with currency in euros. Why? In this case, if you're European and you're investing in euros, then you save on all the transactions 0.25% is in euros. So we have a few more examples. We've already talked about the ACC that comes after it. That means accumulating. In other words, reinvesting the dividend. For example, we see here the Vanguard All World with the ticker WWRL. So we see that here, WWRL on the American exchange in euros. And here, see this, and this stands for distribution. Distribution actually means payout of the dividend. For the rest, you don't really see much here. A lot, for example, in DEGIRO, but what is really a must, what you need to know is about, we've talked a bit about what price is charts, but this doesn't really say anything at all. If you want to become a savvy investor, then you need to know how to value these kinds of ETFs, because you just buy an ETF for certain valuation. Let's quickly take the IWDA. Let's quickly take an ETF as an example. So we want a bit more information about this fund, and we actually want to know, when is it actually cheap? Just a moment. You have two disciplines, technical analysis. Technical analysis is with these little charts here. And if you are a long-term investor who doesn't want to speculate, but mainly wants to invest with certainty, then you should opt for fundamental analysis. Technical analysis is also widely used in cryptos or just volatile products where real investors strike. It's not the real investors, but the long-term ones. Investors who want to work more calculatedly and want to increase opportunities while limiting risks. Simply by thinking a lot, they want to buy based on valuation. Every stock has a valuation, and with stocks, it's more relevant than with ETFs. But an ETF is a bundle of stocks. And for that, you need to know what the overall valuation is. In this case, you see the iShares ETF. And you see a number of factors. This ETF costs 0.2% per year. So that's on top of the transaction cost at a platform. DEGIRO is an investment platform where the issuer of the ETF also makes money for the management, and their fees therefore per year, 0.2%. There are a number of other characteristics, but here you see the number of positions. So there are 1,400 companies in here. And see the price to book ratio, which is the book value. And actually, a book value of 1 is good. Everything above that is actually too high. But for example, technology stocks have a completely different book value. Of course, let's say an oil company. So there's a really big difference there. So that 3.5 doesn't really say anything at all. And that price to earnings ratio here, that indicates 25. Price to earnings means price to earnings ratio. This is a crucial term in investing that you absolutely need to know. And for the global ETF is simply said very high. If you compare that with the historical situation, finally we see the standard deviation. And that actually means the volatility it can show over a certain period. In this case, for 1 year. So drop or a rise of 16% is actually nothing at all for even an ETF with a lot of diversification. So this happens more often than you think. So keep that in mind. An ETF goes through ups and downs. With a stock, that's more extreme. But an ETF also goes through ups and downs. And of course, you want to buy it so that it increases in the long term. But what you really want is to buy when the valuations are very low. When everyone is in a panic, you buy extra wine and you make use of price volatility. Because volatility is something very different from risk. But those are all terms for advanced. We're not going to talk about that in this video. It's all taken long enough. Thank you for watching. That was everything about buying and selling ETFs. Jiro, you have questions about this? Let me know. I would really, when you subscribe, and the video gives a like, because that helps us a lot to grow within the YouTube algorithm. And the more we grow, the more good quality videos we will make for you. Thank you. See you next time.